Good evening and welcome. This is News First, where the people come first. Bringing you the news, I'm Azra San. Let's first take a look at your headlines for this evening.
Petrol shipment further delayed. Minister says sorry for inconvenience.
මේ වෙන විට 92 පෙට්‍රල් මෙට්‍රික් ටොන් 1500ක් සංස්ථාව සතුව නැහැ. ගබඩා සතුව නැහැ. තියෙනවා නම් අපි කියනවා සංඛ්‍යා ලේඛනත් එක්ක එලි කරන්න.
Dhammika Pereira sworn in as a new minister. Essential service providers stranded in fuel queues. Operations at hospitals affected. 4 Aragalaya protesters released on bail. Former Minister Johnston Fernando at the CID. Velgama released from the SLTB bribery case. Why are proceedings of the COPE committee being hidden? Opposition leader raises concerns.
The President's Media Division said MP Dhammika Pereira was sworn in as the new Minister of Investment Promotion today. MP Dhammika Pereira was sworn in the presence of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa at the President's house. He was appointed to the national list position of the Sri Lanka Podujana Perumana that was left vacant following the resignation of former Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa met with EU ambassadors today.
According to the President's Media Division, the EU ambassadors had assured the President that they will continue to support Sri Lanka during difficult times. They said that European countries consider Sri Lanka a friend. During a meeting held at the President's house in Fort this morning, members of the European Regional Mission said that if Sri Lanka sends a firm message to the international community on the future plans with regard to the economy, they could secure assistance from them. President Rajapaksa said that 75% of the country's population is engaged in agriculture, and providing them with the necessary fertilizer and fuel would solve many problems as well as provide food security.
Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara says that the arrival of the petrol cargo that was supposed to reach Sri Lanka today has been further delayed. In a tweet, Minister Wijesekara says a new date of arrival will be confirmed later today. He also apologized for the delay and the update that was given yesterday. Sri Lankan authorities are yet to provide a definite solution to the worsening fuel crisis in the country. The death of Ravishan Madhuranga last night in Anuradhapura was the 12th death reported in a fuel queue so far.
Ravishan Madhuranga was just 19 years old. He lived in Tambutegama and worked hard over the last few days to travel overseas. He visited a fuel station in Anuradhapura to pump fuel to his motorcycle to travel to the office of the Foreign Employment Bureau in Vaunia. However, last night, tragedy struck when a vehicle crashed onto his motorcycle that was parked in the fuel queue. At just 19 years old, a soul that shouldered the weight of the family that survived on agriculture was lost to the nation.
මතක තියාගන්න මේ නැති වෙන එක ජීවිතයක්වත් මේ එක රත්තරන් දරුවෙක්වත් එක රුපියලක්වත් එක ඩොලර් එකක්වත් හොරා කාපු මිනිස්සු නෙමෙයි. මේකට සියලු මේ පාලකයෝවක් කියන්න ඕනේ. මේ පාලකයෝ දැන් ඇස්කම් පියාගෙන නිකන් නින්දේ වගේ ජීවත් වෙනවා. මතක තියාගන්න මේ පව් ගෙවන්න වෙනවා කවදා හරි. මේ ඉන්නේ මේ රට වෙනුවෙන් වැඩ කරන ජනතාව. මේ කවුරුත් නෑ මෙතන හොරු මංකොල්ලකාරයෝ.
A program was introduced to provide fuel to essential services, including health services on every Friday. However, that program appears to be unsuccessful. The Health Ministry had announced that fuel will be issued to healthcare workers from 74 filling stations in the country. However, many healthcare workers, including doctors, had to wait in queues for several hours as sufficient stocks of fuel were not issued to filling stations. The staff of the Puttalam Hospital engaged in a protest blocking the Puttalam-Kurunegala main road today, citing that they have to wait in queues to purchase petrol instead of treating patients. Staff of the Ambilipitia Hospital was not able to obtain fuel from the filling stations specially allocated for them. The staff members engaged in a protest opposite the hospital. A tense situation was reported at the filling station allocated to issue fuel to the staff of the Gamba Hospital as the filling station ran out of fuel. A cooperative filling station was allocated to the staff of the Kurunegala Hospital. A heated situation arose after allegations were made that a group that had forcefully obtained fuel allocated to health workers from the filling station last night.
All staff members, including doctors, had been in queues since 10:11 last night. About 3,500 litres were allocated to healthcare workers, but a group had taken it forcefully. All the filling stations in Kurunegala allocated for healthcare workers did not have fuel today. Everyone is in a queue now. Hospitals are about to be shut down. Who will be held responsible for this?
The issuance of fuel to healthcare workers from the Katukale fuel station in Kandy was met with strong opposition by the public today. A tense situation arose after people at the Kaduruwela filling station in Polonnaru were informed that fuel delivery will be prioritized for health workers. The outpatient department of the Polonnaruwa General Hospital was closed down due to the fuel crisis. Medical staff of the Colombo National Hospital had to wait in queues at the filling station in Town Hall this morning.
සෙට් 7ක් සෞඛ්‍ය අමාත්‍යාංශය අපිට තෙල් ගහන්න කියලා නම් කරලා තියෙනවා. මේ වෙනකොට එක සෙට් එකකවත් තෙල් නැහැ. අපි දැන් සෙට් 3ක කොලිමේ ඉඳලා තමයි මේ කොලිමට තෙල් දැන් මේ 100 වෙනියට විතර මේ කොලිමේ ඉන්නේ. සර්ජන්ලා ශල්‍ය වෛද්‍යවරු හදිස්සිය කැදවන අය ඉන්නවනේ. ඔන් කෝල් ඉන්න අය. ඉතින් ඒගොල්ලොත් ඔක්කොම මේ පොලිමල කොහොමද යන්නේ? නියමිත ක්‍රමවේදයක් සකස් කරන්නේ නැති තාක්කල් හැමදාම වෛද්‍යවරුත් පොලිම් වල, ලෙඩුත් පොලිම් වල, රටේ ජනතාවත් පොලිම් වල.
Operations at the Vatupitiwala District Hospital were disrupted today as staff members were off duty to obtain fuel. As a result, patients were severely inconvenienced.
රෝගීන් අතුලත් කිරීම පවා අපි නවත්තලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ නවත්තලා තියෙන කිසිම අහිතකින් නෙමෙයි. අපි මේ යන්නේ අපිට වැඩට එන්න පෙට්‍රල් ටිකක් හොයාගන්න, අපිට වැඩට එන්න ඩීසල් ටිකක් හොයාගන්න.
Staff members, including doctors of the Maharagama Apeksha Hospital, had to wait in queues at the filling station in Navina this morning.
අපි ඇත්තටම රැකියාවට යන්න බලාගෙන ආවේ නෑ. අද මේ වෙනකොට අපි මම වැඩ කරන්නේ මහරගම අපේක්ෂා රෝහලේ. ශිෂ්‍යායන ගොඩක් තියෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒවා ගොඩක් අය අතපසුවල විශාල සේවක සංඛ්‍යාව මෙතන රැස්තියක් වෙලා ඉන්නවා. දෙපර හිතාගන්න මේ අපි හරි අසරණයි.
Operations at the Maharagama Apeksha Hospital were disrupted as a result.
ඇතුලේ ඩොක්ටර්ස්ලා ඉතින් අඩුයි ඒගොල්ලන්ට මේ තෙල් ප්‍රශ්න තියෙන හින්දා
අපිට කියන්න තියෙන ඉතින් එයාලටවත් විශේෂත්වයක් කරලා දෙන්න කියලා ඉතින් ලෙඩු ගැන සලකලානේ.
රෝහල් කාර්මණ්ඩල විශාල සංඛ්‍යාවක් ඉන්ධන පොලිමේ සිටිනවා. වැඩපිළිවෙල ක්‍රමාත්භාවයකින් පවත්වා ගන්න කියාවක් තිබෙනවා නම් ඉන්ධන ලබා ගැනීම පහසුකම වේදයක් සකස් කිරීම අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා. රෝහලේ කටයුතු වලට මේ ක්‍රමවේදයේ යම් බාධාවක් තිබෙනවා.
Meanwhile, fuel was properly distributed to healthcare workers in Dambulla today.
Heated exchanges have been reported from multiple filling stations across the country as the crisis worsens.
The fuel station in Kutahina received fuel today for the first time in many days. An issue over a fuel queue led to an ugly confrontation between the police and the locals. A group who were in line at a filling station in Panchagawatha moved to the streets and obstructed the movement of vehicles from the Sangaraja Mawatha. Heavy traffic was reported in the area due to the protest. Protesters blocked the Putlam Colombo main road from the 10th mile post in Madurankulia and demanded fuel. The protest was called off after the police arrived at the scene and assured them that fuel will be provided. A tense situation was reported at the Sipetco fuel station in Ampara at about 9 p.m. yesterday. The staff at the fuel station were accused of concealing stocks of fuel. The police and security forces intervened and distributed fuel to the people from midnight until this morning. Tensions broke out again this morning after the staff informed the people that their fuel stocks are over. The people then staged a protest blocking the road opposite the fuel station located at the DS Senanayaka Mawatha in Ampara. The police intervened again and checked the storage tanks and took steps to distribute the remaining stocks of fuel among the people. A tense situation was reported at the cooperative fuel station in Kandy after new stocks of fuel were brought in after many days.
Employees at the Sapascana Oil Refinery claim that the refinery will have to go offline soon. They say that after the crude oil shipment that reached Sri Lanka on the 20th of June, another shipment is yet to arrive. Employees at the Sapascana Oil Refinery urge the government to take steps to ensure that operations at the refinery can continue uninterrupted. The Sapascana Oil Refinery cannot operate at full capacity from tomorrow. Staff at the refinery protested today to highlight these matters.
Sri Lanka
The Sapascana Oil Refinery, which is the most valuable resource of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, will cease operations from tonight. Although this refinery continued to provide an uninterrupted supply of fuel to the country since 1969, due to the shortage of crude oil, the refinery had to be closed down 4 times since November last year. We cannot use the last portion of crude oil in the tanks to continue the operations of the refinery. There are no crude oil shipments. Since there is no crude oil, the gradual process of shutting down operations at the refinery will begin tonight. The minister is not issuing a proper directive. What is the issue here? The CPC does not have even 1,500 metric tons of petrol. If you have more stocks, please release these documents to us and prove it. With the refinery being shut down, the production of kerosene oil will also have to reduce drastically, which will lead to an even more severe shortage of kerosene oil.
Litrogas and Love's Gas are still not able to meet the demand for gas cylinders in the market.
State-run Litrogas Lanka Limited says 2 ships carrying 7,000 metric tons of gas is set to reach Sri Lanka. The shipment will reach the country between the 5th and the 12th of next month. People were seen in queue to buy Love's Gas today. Police intervened in the distribution process in Moratua. People had left their gas cylinders in queue at the Gaul Samanala Stadium.
We have no way of going to work. We can't afford to feed our children. We are helpless.
A consignment of humanitarian aid from India reached Sri Lanka today. The consignment of essential items is worth 3 billion Sri Lankan rupees.
Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka Gopal Bagle, Minister of Health Kehiliya Rambukvalla, Minister of Trade Nalin Fernando, parliamentarians M.A. Sumandiran, V. Radhakrishnan, M. Udayakumara, Angajan Ramanathan and several others including Sendil Tondaman welcomed the donation. The consignment from India includes 14,700 metric tons of rice, 250 metric tons of milk powder and 38 metric tons of medicine. This is the second consignment under a larger commitment of 40,000 metric tons of rice, 500 metric tons of milk powder and medicines by the Tamil Nadu government.
Deputy Asia Pacific Regional Director of the UN World Food Programme, Anthea Webb, says an alarming number of Sri Lankans are skipping meals and reducing their food intake. She said this during an exclusive interview with Newsfirst Mariam Kunivijaya.
What is your take on the situation in the country? Would you call this a food crisis?
I think that what Sri Lanka is facing at the moment is a really serious challenge to food security. Now that food prices have gone up 58%, those people who were already struggling are very close to being pushed over the edge. We already have evidence that many people in Sri Lanka are reducing the number of meals they eat. They're making those meals smaller so the food lasts longer, and in some cases they're skipping them, which is a really, really worrying sign.
Malnutrition is not an issue that Sri Lanka started facing today or yesterday. It's been there even before the COVID-19 pandemic and even before this economic crisis. How do you think this issue of malnutrition can be tackled in Sri Lanka?
One is that those most vulnerable people, young children and pregnant women, absolutely need to be protected. The second is to get the food economy back up and running. The reason I'm so worried about children and pregnant women is that the effect of not being well nourished carries throughout your life. Their ability to be healthy and smart and productive in their life is damaged, and it's something that is almost impossible to reverse. That's a part of the reason that we're so keen that intervention happens in Sri Lanka right now. There's no time to lose. We do not want to be seeing anyone suffering more than they currently are.
Mariam's full interview with Anthea Webb will be telecast soon on TV1 and on our online platforms. In more local news, who was responsible for irresponsibly destroying the wealth of the nation? His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, the Archbishop of Colombo, called for an inquiry into the matter.
How did Sri Lanka's reserves that stood between 7 to 8 billion US dollars drop down to zero? How did the gold reserves at the central bank disappear? An investigation must be conducted as to how and why this wealth of the nation was wasted. This will answer the suffering of the people. The people need to know who wasted this money, who took these incompetent decisions, who supported them. For example, who decided to suddenly ban the import of chemical fertilizer? Who was behind it? The agriculture sector of the country collapsed completely because of this decision. That decision is a reason for the situation that we are facing today. Power and service are like two sides of the same coin. Power must be used to serve. Power without service is pointless. A leader is given power to make the people prosper. That is what the leaders promised to do. Therefore, we urge these leaders to conduct an investigation into these matters and find out who is responsible for bringing this country to a point where we are now begging. And if it is possible to recover the money from them, qualified people who have a sound mind should be appointed to responsible institutions like the Treasury and the Ministry of Finance. These people must know what they are doing and love the country. Responsible leaders of our country should not appoint their friends to these positions.
His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit made this statement while attending the feast of the church dedicated to the Sacred Heart of Jesus at the Colombo North Teaching Hospital today.
Have you ever heard of the rumba kapuba village? If the answer is no, then it is a remote village in Anuradhapura which was given a renewed hope today.
Rumba is a rural village located 60 kilometers away from Anuradhapura. 400 families call this village their home, and their main source of survival is agriculture. These people who toil day and night on their fields to make ends meet have no way of quenching their thirst. Like countless villagers in rural Sri Lanka, a majority of residents here suffer from kidney ailments. The people of this village were filled with joy today as Gammadda laid the foundation stone for the construction of a project to provide clean drinking water to them. The people of this village will soon be able to quench their thirst with clean drinking water. Gammadda, for the people, by the people.
News First with the people.
More news after this short commercial break.
මොකද මහත්තයා මේ නෑ මේ ගෙදර සිංක් එකේ අයි මහත්තයා ස්ලෝන් නෙවෙයිද දැම්මේ හදිස්සියට බාලා පයිප්පයක් දැම්මේ නැද්ද මුදලාලි ඊයේ පෙරේදා කඩේ රිපෙයාර් කරන්න ගෙනාපු ගම් චුට්ටා මේ වගේ ප්‍රශ්න වලට හොඳම විසඳුම ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටා හැබැයි ඉක්මනින් දාගන්න ස්ලෝන් පයිප්පයක්
ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටා හැම ගෙදරකම සිටිය යුතු ජලනල කාර්මිකයා දැන් රඟම ග්‍රොසරියෙන් මිලදී ගන්න
Eva Trusted Confidence now has a fresh new feel. For the first time in Sri Lanka, Eva unveiled an antibacterial layer to minimize microbial growth and control odor, helping you stay fresher throughout the day. Now with maximum absorption. Available in cotton feel wings for maximum comfort and Drytex wings for maximum dryness. Eva, leading with confidence.
Welcome back to the news. The 4th Magistrates Court granted bail to 4 suspects who were remanded over the 9th May unrest in Colombo.
Attorneys filed a motion at the Magistrates Court seeking bail for the 7 Aragalaya protesters who were placed under remand custody. 4th Magistrate Tilina Gamage issued an order releasing Jagat Manuvarna, Dhammika Munasinghe, Shehana Puhami and Eranga Gunasekara on a personal bail of 500,000 rupees each. Rathindu Senaratna alias Ratta, Lahiru Vijayasekara and Venerable Lakkarauve Jinaratana Thera were returned to remand custody. The council here today made an argument in court that damages caused to public roads should fall under the National Thoroughfares Act. The National Thoroughfares Act was passed after the Public Property Act. Section 56 of the National Thoroughfares Act clearly states that a fine of 5,000 rupees can be imposed for any damage caused to roads. Also, there was a serious issue as facts were reported to court by the ASP under the Public Property Act, citing that the pedestrian crossing in front of the police headquarters was damaged. However, the report submitted by the engineer of the Colombo Municipal Council included damages caused to several other areas. There is a serious contradiction here. Therefore, we were able to bail out 4 of the 7 protesters who were arrested. Meanwhile, counsel appearing for the Aragalaya protesters convened a media briefing and said that protesters who secured bail did not post bail and returned back to remand custody. Since 3 of their fellow protesters did not get bail, the remaining protesters who got bail did not post bail and returned to remand custody along with their fellow protesters. This decision shows the love and bravery of the Aragalaya protesters.
The group Citizens Against Oppression held a media briefing in Colombo today.
The Gota Ranil government covers up their shortcomings in an extremely foolish manner through continuous oppression. They have incarcerated thousands of people who took part in the Aragalaya. People are suffering, standing in queues. They are dying in queues. We can see them playing games to retain power when they are failing from every angle. You won't be able to put a stop to this protest, no matter how hard you try to oppress it. The fight against you will be carried forward. Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Ranil Wickremesinghe must resign from their portfolios. This is our democracy. This is how they are oppressing us and trying to move into a military rule. The constitution is the law of the land. Politicians and police officials who act beyond the means of the law must be prepared to be held accountable for their actions. We know what to do. Be prepared to answer for what you have done. Gotabaya Rajapaksa has become the same as the original sin. Gotabaya Rajapaksa thinks he can control this with his goons. They think they can run this show for a few more weeks, but that is not going to work until they get rid of the original sin that caused this mess. The problems of this country can only be resolved by sending Gotabaya Rajapaksa and his government home, who were the cause for this great issue in our nation.
Gotabaya Rajapaksa ඇතුළු මේ ආණ්ඩුව ගෙදර යැවීමම පමණයි.
පාරේ මිනිස්සු මැරෙනවා. දැන් ඇති තව people are dying on the streets. How many more are you going to kill? This is murder. They are not natural deaths. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, please leave. We cannot afford to wait until you become a successful president one day. This country is in dire straits. You've stayed long enough. First you get up and leave.
ඉවරයි. මේ රටේ ඔයා ඉඳන් හිටිය ඇති. ඉස්සලා ඔයා නැගිටින්න. ඔයා නැගිටලා යන්න.
They don't have answers to any of these problems. We know that they will suppress the people furthermore when they rise against this corruption. We will not allow that.
What happened to the mighty power of the Rajapaksas? Were they able to put the power into good use? I would like to ask President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, what happened to you? Your past is catching up to you.
If you want to put an end to the Aragalaya, then you must give solutions to the problems of the country. The Rajapaksas and Ranil Wickremesinghe must leave. There is no other way to put an end to the Aragalaya. There is no other way. Our silence doesn't mean the Aragalaya has come to an end. This is the calm before the storm. Don't get used to people dying in fuel queues. The people of this great nation must come together. We must create a force of the people. We must prepare ourselves to create a great voice for the people. We must come together, or else they will oppress each and every one of us. To a point, all of us will have to take our women and children and leave this country. We will come to a point where there will be no one left to save in this country.
Former Minister Johnston Fernando was summoned to the Criminal Investigations Department today.
Former Minister Johnston Fernando arrived at the CID at about 9 this morning. Fernando left the premises after providing a statement for 4 hours. According to the CID, statements were recorded from him regarding a speech he delivered at Temple Trees on the 9th of May.
උසාවියෙන් කරපු ඉල්ලීමකට අපරාධ පරීක්ෂණ දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවෙන් මම ප්‍රකාශයක් ගන්න මං ආවේ. ප්‍රකාශය ලබා දුන්නාද කොහොමද? ඔය ලබා දුන්නේ තමයි යන්නේ. කොහොමද?
Meanwhile, the committee appointed to probe any shortcomings committed by security forces during acts of violence carried out throughout the country recorded statements from the Chief of Defence Staff General Shavendra Silva today. A spokesperson of the committee said statements were recorded from 40 members of the security forces, including the commanders of the tri-forces. A member of the committee said its report is to be handed over to the President next week. Admiral of the Fleet Vasantha Karannagoda is chairing the committee. The rest of the members include General Daya Ratnayaka and Marshal of the Air Force Roshan Gunatilaka.
The Colombo Magistrates Court has ordered to release former Minister Kumara Welgamer from a case filed against by the Bribery Commission.
Former Minister Kumara Welgamer was charged for creating a non-existent position at the Sri Lanka Transport Board and paying salaries, causing losses to the government. The case was taken up before Colombo Chief Magistrate Nandana Amarasinghe. He ordered for Kumara Welgamer to be released after the Bribery Commission said it would withdraw the case and reserve the right to refile a case against Welgamer. The Bribery Commission withdrew the case as it had not followed due process in filing the case, as it should obtain the signatures of all 3 commissioners to file a case. Kumara Welgamer also commented on the violence that unfolded on the 9th of May when leaving the court premises. They attacked me on the 9th too. I am one of the 225, but I am also one of the first people to have said that Gotabaya must leave. They beat me up. They even burnt my vehicle.
They have
withdrawn 35 lawsuits, including the cases filed against Mahinda Rajapaksa and his henchmen. They are withdrawing these cases of their henchmen in cabinet every week. This has to stop. Don't try to play games with the Attorney General and the Director General of the Bribery Commission with public funds. They are politicizing this. That is the reason why these two institutions are withdrawing these cases that they have filed. The government is asking these institutions to free these 35 thieves who are looting public funds that should have gone to the treasury. The authorities must get involved. If not, we don't know where this will end.
A group from Colombo and suburbs carried out a protest in Buralla today against the rising cost of living.
They began the protest opposite the Castle Street Hospital for Women and then marched towards the Buralla Cemetery.
Boris Johnson loses.
We will be back after this short commercial break. Stay with News First.
මොකද මහත්තයා මේ නෑ මේ ගෙදර සිංක් එකේ අයි මහත්තයා ස්ලෝන් නෙවෙයිද දැම්මේ හදිස්සියට බාලා පයිප්පයක් දැම්මේ නැද්ද මුදලාලි ඊයේ පෙරේදා කඩේ රිපෙයාර් කරන්න ගෙනාපු ගම් චුට්ටක් මේ වගේ ප්‍රශ්න වලට හොඳම විසඳුම ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටක් හැබැයි ඉක්මනින් දාගන්න ස්ලෝන් පයිප්පයක්
ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටා හැම ගෙදරකම සිටිය යුතු ජලනල කාර්මිකයා දැන් රඟම ග්‍රොසරියෙන් මිලදී ගන්න.
Welcome back to the news. Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa says no one has the right to conceal the information revealed in COPE sessions from the public. He expressed these views during a program with trade unions in Colombo.
fernando හිටපු සභාපතිවරයා ආපහු කෝප් එකට ඇවිල්ලා මොනවද කියපු සංවේදී කාරණා ඇයි
Former chairman of the CEB, Fernando, revealed sensitive information before COPE. Why are they being hidden from the public and the country? This is not an issue concerning national security. According to the information we received, these secret deals were made in mansions. Is the COPE committee trying to conceal this information on corruption from the public? We must stand against this. The people must be allowed to know everything that was said by Fernando. We must not let them protect their cronies. Is the fact that parliamentarians worked as local agents of foreign multinational companies the sensitive matter here? The COPE has no right to conceal information given by Fernando.
කිසිම අයිතියක් නැහැ. ෆර්ඩිනැන්ඩෝ ඒ කෝප් කමිටුව හරහා එළිදරව් කරපු දේවල් රටෙන් වසන් කරන්න.
Former chairman of the Ceylon Electricity Board, MMC Fernando, was called to COPE again yesterday to inquire into the statement he made at COPE regarding the Adani project on the 10th of this month. However, COPE did not release footage of the session to the media and later said the footage will be made available on Monday.
ෆර්ඩිනැන්ඩෝ මහත්මයා අදහස් දැක්වුවේ සිදු ජනාධිපති.
So as per Fernando's statement, the president does not issue a single order in writing. The government officials have to take his verbal orders. They have to take the letter he sent to the finance ministry as the gold standard. In the letter sent to the finance ministry on the 25th of November, it is not just the president who has given directives, so has the prime minister. No one accused the president of tampering with the electricity board. But if Mr. Fernando is correct, then the president was lying in his tweet. If the president's tweet is accurate, then Fernando is lying. Mr. Fernando then goes on to send a copy of this letter to the Honorable Gamini Lokuge, the minister in charge of power and energy at that time. But why was a copy delivered to Namal Rajapaksa, who is Adani's local agent in Sri Lanka? We discussed all this this with Fernando at Cope last evening. We have no interest in creating a dispute between India and Sri Lanka, but if someone is playing underhand deals, then Cope has the responsibility of informing the public of what's really going on.
Cope කමිටුව හැටියට අපි සාකච්ඡා කරපු දේවල් දැනගැනීමේ අයිතිය මේ රටේ ජනතාවට තියෙනවා.
Boris Johnson's Conservatives lost 2 parliamentary seats today. Now this was a serious blow to the governing party that prompted the resignation of his chairman and intensified doubts about the future of Britain's Prime Minister.
The polls were the first since Boris Johnson narrowly survived a vote of confidence this month, in which 41% of his parliamentary colleagues voted to remove him. This was in Tiverton and Honiton. The Conservatives lost a majority of more than 24,000 votes, defeated by the centrist Liberal Democrats, who secured a majority of more than 6,000. Meanwhile, the main opposition Labour Party reclaimed Wakefield in northern England. Johnson has come under intense pressure to resign after he was fined for breaking COVID-19 lockdown rules after a police investigation into gatherings at his Downing Street offices.
In some sports news, Australia won the 5th and final one-day international against Sri Lanka by 4 wickets at the R. Premadasa Stadium in Colombo a short while ago. Despite the win, Sri Lanka claimed the series 3-2. And that's a wrap of this edition of Primetime News. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Mazra Hassan. Stay safe and good night.